Be careful. This bubble right now is a bigger bubble than 2008. This is the everything bubble. This is going to be the biggest crash in world history. And the good thing about being older is you have some history behind you. Is you have a football stadium and it starts to fill up with water, one drop at a time. When do the people in the stands find out it's too late?
That magic eyedropper that you squeeze out one drop and it doubles in size every minute. It's something like 50 minutes. The point at which the people can see the field beginning to fill up with water and notice that there's going to be a problem, I think it's at 45 minutes, so only 5 minutes to go, that just the infield is covered by like 3 feet of water. And you go from just being able to see a little of it to the entire thing being filled up in just 5 minutes. And the whole point of that is with exponential functions, like so many of the problems we face are, by the time you can actually see the problem, it's way too late to actually avoid it. At that point, your choices are really just about how you're going to manage this thing that's about to slam into you.
So being the old guys, like the story is always the same. What's her name?
Kathy Wood from ARC.
They all say the same thing. This time it's different. This is the new economy. How many minutes are left?
In terms of things like when we're going to have to really deal with the repercussions of the tremendous and excessive amount of debts that we built up in the system that are basically, we pulled so much of tomorrow's prosperity into today, stealing it from future generations. We've been trying to avoid those repercussions over the past many decades by money printing and kicking the can as far as we can financially. I honestly think we're in those final 5 minutes. I think we can certainly see the infield is filling up with water. I would say it's more than 3 feet deep at this point. Now, is it going to be 2 years or 10 years? It's probably going to be, I would say, maybe a little closer to 10 than 2, but it could be anywhere in that window. At the end of the day, what's going to happen is going to be a default on our obligations. And the question is are we going to default because we're going to stand back and let the debts collapse, which was sort of the deflationary austerity side of things? Or are we going to inflate our way out by just printing so much money to meet the debt obligations, we just kill the currency? And if you had to force me to choose between one of those two, I would pick the latter. I think politically, inflating is always the more preferential way, even though you get to the same destination at the end.
Right. So again, there's an advantage of getting older, is all I'm saying. And Jim Rickards and I were just laughing our butts off. Going, we've heard all this before, but we're down to the last 4 minutes. And the question is, are you going to keep doing the same thing? I think that's our question today. But I'll give somebody else some other ideas how bad this is and why being old might be better, is that we are just coming out of the longest bull run in history, 11 years. Started in 2011. And at 2011, I made the biggest fortunes of my life because that was the MBS, mortgage-backed securities, and the CDO crashes, the real estate crashed. And I backed up the truck and I borrowed $300 million to buy the best real estate all across the Southwest. I'm watching all these young guys, they entered the longest bull market in history. They're walking around in diapers in 2008, and now they're on YouTube with their channels and they're talking about this, they're talking about that. They've never seen a crash. And this is going to be the biggest crash in world history. And these guys are giving advice. So it's my way of saying to your audience, find out how old they were when they were wearing diapers. And be careful who you're taking advice from. How old are they? Because this is the longest bull market in history. I look at some of these young kids, and I own some Bitcoin, I own some Ethereum, but they're all saying the same thing. This time it's different, and Bitcoin's crashed. The Federal Reserve Bank, I can't believe that. I mean, people say, don't fight the Fed and all this. Well, my question to everybody is this: can the Fed print oil? Can the Fed print gasoline? Can it print food? But everybody sits there and they've been brainwashed by Wall Street to go, do as the Fed tells you to do. Well, you got to be kidding me. Those guys are the three stooges, Janet Yellen, Biden, and Powell. You got to be kidding me. Why would you listen to them?
Just like they eventually created the inflation they were looking for, but just got way too much of it, I think they're going to get the same demand destruction they're looking for, just way too much of it again. I don't know.
The thing out of being old, because I remember, so he raised interest rates, right? So Powell is now channeling the spirit of Volcker. And, when Volcker crushed inflation, debt to GDP was 30%. And today it's 125% if you believe the numbers. So if he channels Volcker, and the other thing about history will tell you this: there's never been a soft landing. It's more Fed talk. I'm just saying, be careful the age of the person you're listening to, because most of these guys on YouTube today were in diapers in 2008. In this market crash, I've made more money in the last 3 years in my whole life. And so that's what I want to talk about with you today, is that there's other ways of looking at investing, but to think that Powell is going to save you when, as you may know, the reverse repo market is running at 2 trillion a day today.
Right.
2 trillion a day, and people are listening to Powell? You got to be kidding me. And look at Janet Yellen. Oh my God. I own no stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs. I do not touch paper. I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but I think people have been brainwashed by the Fed, the Treasury. Go to school, get a job, pay your taxes, get a high-paying job, and invest for the long term in a well-diversified portfolio of stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs. It was in 1974 when I came back from Vietnam, a two-tour Marine helicopter pilot. I saw communism at work. It was not pretty. And I come back in 1974, they passed ERISA. ERISA stands for 401k right now, or IRA. And I went, oh my God, they're funneling my generation, the boomers, into the stock market. And they don't know anything about money. And in 1974, the biggest exodus was school teachers suddenly becoming financial planners. I watched it in horror. That's the poor leading the blind. And today we have baby boomers who are hoping the stock market stays up in their 401k just as Social Security goes bust. You think that's an accident? That's all I'm saying. I'm just a Marine. I'm a dumbass Marine lieutenant, flew the gunship, went down 3 times. But today I listen to this bullshit and I go, oh my God, how can we be that stupid? Because we went to school, we did as we're told. Don't fight the Fed, do as the Fed tells you. Invest for the long term, a well-diversified portfolio of stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs. And don't worry, Powell is now channeling Volcker.